The red warning lights flashed across every screen in the monitoring room. Dr. Sarah Kim pushed her chair back from the massive computer terminal and stared at the data flowing across her screen. After 12 years of scanning deep space for signs of intelligent life, she had finally found something. But this was not the peaceful first contact humanity had hoped for. "Director Walsh, you need to see this immediately," Sarah called out to her supervisor. Her voice carried a tremor that made everyone in the room stop what they were doing. Director Walsh hurried over, his heavy footsteps echoing in the quiet facility buried 3 miles beneath the Colorado mountains. The Deep Space Monitoring Station had been built in secret 20 years ago, funded by a coalition of world governments who believed that if aliens existed, Earth needed to know about them before they arrived. "What have you got?" Walsh asked, leaning over Sarah's shoulder to examine the readings. Long-range sensors picked up a massive fleet moving through the outer rim of our solar system. "They're still beyond Pluto's orbit, but they're headed directly toward us." Sarah's fingers danced across the keyboard, bringing up more detailed scans. "Director, these ships are enormous." The largest one is nearly 50 kilometers long. Walsh felt his blood run cold. "How many ships are we talking about?" "Initial count shows over 300 vessels. And sir, they're definitely not human technology. The energy signatures are completely foreign, and they're moving faster than anything we've ever built." The director grabbed the red emergency phone on Sarah's desk and dialed a number he had memorized, but hoped never to use. "This is Walsh at Deep Space Monitor. Connect me to President Carter immediately. Authorization code Echo 77 Alpha." While Walsh spoke in hushed tones to the highest levels of government, Sarah continued analyzing the incoming data. The alien fleet was still days away from Earth, but their technology was clearly far advanced beyond anything humanity possessed. Each ship in the formation radiated energy levels that suggested weapons capable of destroying entire cities. "They're trying to communicate," announced Dr. Chen from across the room. He was the facility's linguistics expert, trained in developing first contact protocols. "I'm picking up structured transmissions on multiple frequencies." Walsh finished his emergency call and rushed to Chen's station. "Can you decode it?" "Working on it now. The mathematical patterns suggest they understand our basic communication methods. They're using prime numbers and universal constants to establish a baseline." Chen's computer began processing the alien signals, searching for recognizable patterns. The entire facility watched in tense silence as the translation program worked. After 20 minutes that felt like hours, text began appearing on Chen's screen. "Primitive species of the third planet," Chen read aloud, his voice growing quieter with each word. "You exist within territory claimed by the Dominion. Your world will be absorbed into our empire. Prepare for immediate surrender or face complete destruction. You have 72 of your planetary rotations to comply." The room fell completely silent. Sarah stared at her screen, watching the massive fleet continue its approach toward Earth. These aliens, whoever they were, had not come in peace. They had come as conquerors. "There's more," Chen continued. "They're transmitting what appears to be a historical record. Images and data about other worlds they've conquered." The main screen filled with horrifying images, burning cities on alien worlds, populations being herded into massive ships, entire planets stripped of their resources and left as barren rocks. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of civilizations across the galaxy, and each conquest followed the same pattern. "Demand surrender, destroy all resistance, absorb the survivors into their empire. How long until they reach Earth?" Walsh asked, though he dreaded the answer. Sarah checked her calculations. "At their current speed, they'll arrive in Earth orbit in approximately 60 hours. But sir, they could accelerate if they wanted to. I think they're giving us exactly the time they promised." Walsh picked up the emergency phone again. Within minutes, he was connected to a secure conference call with world leaders, military commanders, and space defense coordinators from every major nation on Earth. "Ladies and gentlemen," Walsh began, "humanity is about to face its greatest challenge. We have confirmed contact with a hostile alien empire that has conquered hundreds of other worlds. They have given us 3 days to surrender unconditionally." The response was immediate chaos. Voices from around the world demanded more information, questioned the validity of the threat, and argued about possible responses. Walsh let them talk for several minutes before calling for order. "The evidence is undeniable," he continued. "Their fleet consists of over 300 ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything in our space program. Based on their historical records, resistance is typically crushed within hours. President Carter's voice came through clearly from Washington. What are our options, Director? Honestly, sir, they appear to be limited. Our entire space defense network consists of 12 armed satellites and a handful of experimental combat ships. Against a fleet this size, conventional military response seems impossible. What about negotiation? Asked the British Prime Minister. Dr. Chen spoke up from his station. I've been analyzing their communication patterns and historical data. The Dominion doesn't negotiate. Every species they've encountered has either surrendered immediately or been completely destroyed. There are no records of any civilization successfully resisting them. Admiral Stone from the Space Defense Command joined the conversation. Director Walsh, I need you to send us everything you have on their technology and fleet composition. If we're going to fight, we need to understand what we're facing. Admiral, with respect, their smallest ships appear to have more firepower than our entire orbital defense grid, Walsh replied. Maybe so, but humanity has never backed down from a fight, regardless of the odds. Send me the data. As the secure conference continued, Sarah noticed something on her long-range sensors. Director, there's another signal coming in. From the alien fleet? No, sir, this one's coming from much farther out. It's weaker, but it's definitely artificial. Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard as she attempted to isolate the signal. It's human, sir. There's a human ship out there way beyond our normal patrol routes. Walsh frowned. That's impossible. We don't have any deep space vessels that far out. The signal is definitely human technology, but it's heavily encrypted. I can't decode it without the proper authorization codes. The implications hit Walsh immediately. If there were human ships operating in deep space without public knowledge, it meant someone had been preparing for this possibility for much longer than anyone realized. The question was whether this secret preparation would be enough to make a difference against an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. As the alien fleet continued its approach toward Earth, humanity faced a choice that would determine the survival of their entire species: surrender and hope for mercy from an empire that had shown none to anyone else, or fight against impossible odds with whatever hidden resources they might possess. The countdown to Earth's final 72 hours had begun. Emergency sirens wailed across every major city on Earth. People stopped in the middle of streets, staring up at the sky as if they could see the approaching alien fleet with their naked eyes. News broadcasts interrupted regular programming with the most important announcement in human history. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their new neighbors had come to conquer. President Carter stood before a joint session of Congress, her face grave as she addressed not just the American people, but the entire world through live satellite feeds. Behind her, massive screens displayed the alien fleet's approach vector and the devastating historical records of their previous conquests. My fellow Americans, and citizens of Earth, she began, we face an unprecedented threat to our survival as a free species. The Dominion Empire has given us 3 days to surrender our planet and our freedom. I stand before you today to declare that America and our allies around the world will never submit to alien tyranny. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every nation on Earth activated their emergency protocols. Military bases that had been quietly preparing for theoretical alien contact suddenly shifted into full operational mode. Deep underground facilities that most people didn't know existed began powering up systems that had been waiting decades for this moment. Admiral Stone stood in the command center of the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, studying tactical displays that showed Earth's true defensive capabilities for the first time. The public knew about the 12 defense satellites and a few experimental spaceplanes. They didn't know about the hidden weapons platforms scattered throughout the solar system, or the advanced ships that had been built in secret facilities on the dark side of the moon. How long to bring all systems online? Stone asked his operations chief. 18 hours for full deployment, sir. The lunar facilities are already beginning launch sequences. The asteroid belt stations will take longer to reach optimal firing positions. Stone nodded grimly. Even with their hidden preparations, humanity was still vastly outgunned. The Dominion fleet consisted of ships that could likely destroy Earth's entire population with minimal effort. But humans had one advantage that previous alien civilizations apparently lacked. They had been expecting this day for over 50 years. Dr. Rivers worked frantically in her laboratory beneath the Pacific Ocean. As Earth's leading expert on theoretical alien biology, she had spent her entire career preparing for first contact. Now she was analyzing every piece of data from the Dominion communications, searching for weaknesses in their technology or tactical patterns. Their energy signatures suggest they use fusion-based power systems, she reported to the Emergency Science Council. More advanced than ours, but operating on the same basic principles. That means they're probably vulnerable to electromagnetic pulse weapons. Do we have EMP capabilities that could affect ships that large? Asked Dr. Martinez from the weapons development team. Not with our current technology, but we might be able to overload their systems if we coordinate multiple strikes from our hidden platforms. Rivers pulled up tactical simulations on her screen. The key is making them think we're weaker than we actually are, until we can get their ships into optimal positions. Across the globe, evacuation procedures began in every major population center. People flowed into subway systems that led to much deeper tunnels than anyone realized. Underground cities that had been constructed in secret over the past 30 years opened their doors to millions of refugees. The surface world prepared to become a battlefield while humanity's civilian population disappeared into the safety of the Earth itself. General Hayes coordinated the evacuation from his command post in the Australian outback. His facility was one of 12 command centers built specifically to survive orbital bombardment. Each center controlled a different aspect of Earth's defense network, and each was prepared to operate independently if the others were destroyed. Evacuation is proceeding ahead of schedule, Hayes reported to the Global Defense Council. Current estimates show we can have 90% of the population in secure facilities within 48 hours. What about the industrial centers? Asked Admiral Stone. Surface factories are being shut down and sealed. Our real production facilities have been underground for decades. Even if they glass the surface, we can continue manufacturing weapons and supplies. The most secret facility of all was located beneath the Swiss Alps. Here, Dr. Kim worked on humanity's most ambitious project. She wasn't the same Dr. Kim from the monitoring station. This Dr. Kim had been dead to the outside world for 15 years, officially killed in a laboratory accident. In reality, she had been developing technology, reverse-engineered from alien, artifacts that few people knew existed. The prototype is ready for field testing, she announced to the small group of scientists and military officers who knew about the project. But I have to warn you, the power requirements are enormous. We can probably manage 3 shots before we drain our entire power grid. Colonel Beck examined the sleek weapon that looked like nothing humans had ever built before. What kind of damage can it do? Against ships using technology similar to what we've observed from the Dominion? Complete molecular disintegration within a radius of approximately 5 kilometers. The challenge is getting close enough to use it. The most remarkable aspect of Earth's preparation was how long it had been in development. 60 years earlier, a radio telescope in Chile had detected artificial signals from beyond the solar system. Instead of announcing the discovery to the world, a small group of scientists and government officials had made a difficult decision. They would prepare humanity for the day when those signals became ships. Everything that had happened since then had been part of the preparation. The space program had been deliberately limited in public to hide the true extent of human space technology. Military budgets had included massive black projects that officially didn't exist. Even the environmental movement had been partially guided to push industrial production underground, where it would be safer from orbital attack. President Carter received hourly updates on the global preparation as she worked with world leaders to coordinate humanity's response. The public saw evacuation and panic. They didn't see the weapon systems coming online throughout the solar system, or the ships launching from hidden bases that had been waiting for this moment for decades. "Ma'am," her chief of staff reported, "we're receiving communications from the deep space monitoring stations. There are more human ships out there than we thought. Ships that aren't in any official records," Carter frowned. "How is that possible?" "We're not sure. The signals are using old authentication codes, some dating back almost 30 years. It's like someone has been launching secret missions for decades without telling anyone." The mystery deepened when similar reports came in from monitoring stations around the world. Human ships were appearing throughout the outer solar system, ships that officially didn't exist and were using technology that was supposedly impossible. Either someone had been running an incredibly secret space program for the past several decades, Or there were aspects of humanity's preparation that even the world leaders didn't know about. As the 48-hour mark approached, Earth had transformed. The surface appeared to be in chaos, with cities emptying and military forces taking defensive positions. Underground, however, humanity was revealing capabilities that had been hidden for generations. Weapons that could crack moons, ships that could travel faster than anything in the public space program, and manufacturing facilities that could produce advanced technology in quantities that would surprise even the approaching alien fleet. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds by following the same pattern. Arrive in overwhelming force, demand surrender, crush any resistance within hours. But they had never encountered a species that had been quietly preparing for their arrival for over half a century. Humanity was about to show them that some prey had teeth. The Dominion fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, like a storm made of metal and death. Commander Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive vessel that had participated in the conquest of 47 worlds. Behind him, 300 ships arranged themselves in the standard Dominion battle formation that had never failed to intimidate primitive species into immediate surrender. "Status report," Krell commanded, his forearms working efficiently at different control stations simultaneously. "All ships report ready for battle configuration, Commander. Long-range scans show minimal defensive capabilities around the target world. 12 primitive satellites and approximately 8 small patrol craft." His tactical officer's voice carried the boredom of someone who had participated in dozens of similar conquests. Krell examined the tactical display with growing confidence. Earth appeared to be even less defended than most primitive worlds they encountered. Most species at least attempted to build some kind of orbital defense grid when they detected the Dominion's approach. These humans seemed to have almost nothing protecting their planet. "Begin standard approach vector. Signal the humans again and inform them they have 12 hours remaining to surrender." What Krell didn't see were the ships hiding in the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon. Earth's true space fleet had been waiting in concealment for 2 days, powered down to avoid detection. Admiral Stone commanded the operation from the bridge of the Defiance, a ship that officially didn't exist and had been built using technology that the public believed was still decades away from development. "Alien, fleet is maintaining standard approach. Formation," reported his tactical officer. "They're proceeding directly toward Earth orbit, just as the intelligence reports predicted." Stone nodded grimly. Humanity had been studying Dominion tactics for 15 years, ever since they had managed to recover fragments of a scout ship that had visited the outer solar system. Every battle pattern, every conquest strategy, every weakness had been carefully analyzed and prepared for. All ships maintain concealment until they reach the engagement zone. Remember, we need to make this look like a desperate last stand. If they realize we've been preparing for this, the whole plan falls apart. The human fleet consisted of 36 ships, each one incorporating technology reverse-engineered from alien artifacts and designed specifically to fight the Dominion. They were smaller than the alien vessels but faster and more maneuverable. More importantly, they carried weapons that the Dominion had never encountered before. As the alien fleet approached Mars orbit, Earth's public defense grid activated. The 12 satellites that the Dominion had detected moved into defensive positions and began transmitting surrender offers and pleas for negotiation. To outside observers, it appeared that humanity was making a panicked attempt to avoid destruction. Commander Krell watched the pathetic display with typical Dominion contempt. "These creatures are even more primitive than expected. Prepare to demonstrate our superior firepower. Destroy 3 of their satellites to show them the futility of resistance." The Dominion ships opened fire with weapons that could shatter asteroids. 3 of Earth's defense satellites disappeared in brilliant explosions that were broadcast live to news networks around the world. The message was clear: resistance was hopeless. But the destruction of the satellites was exactly what Admiral Stone had been waiting for. "All ships, the enemy has revealed their main weapon signatures. Begin approach from concealment. Execute Operation Blind Strike." The human fleet emerged from the shadows of Jupiter's moons like ghosts materializing from the void. Their ships had been designed with stealth technology that made them nearly invisible until they were ready to attack. By the time the Dominion detected them, the human ships were already within weapons range. "Unknown vessels detected," Krell's tactical officer reported in alarm. They're appearing throughout our formation. The first human attack was unlike anything the Dominion had ever experienced. Instead of attempting to match the aliens in raw firepower, the human ships used speed and precision. They targeted specific systems on the Dominion vessels with weapons designed to cause maximum damage with minimal energy expenditure. Commander Blake led the first strike wing, his ship diving between two massive Dominion cruisers while firing focused particle beams at their engine sections. The alien ships, designed to fight primitive enemies who would attempt direct confrontation, were unprepared for attackers who struck like surgical knives rather than clubs. Direct hits on enemy engines, Blake reported. Their ships are more vulnerable than expected. But the Dominion fleet was enormous, and humanity's advantage of surprise could only last so long. As the alien ships began to respond to the attack, their superior numbers started to tell. Human ships found themselves outnumbered 10-1, dodging massive energy blasts that could vaporize them with a single hit. Captain Rivera piloted her ship through a maze of enemy fire, her crew working frantically to maintain their weapon systems. "Admiral, we're taking heavy casualties. 3 ships down, 5 more reporting critical damage." Stone watched the battle display with growing concern. The plan had been to inflict maximum damage on the Dominion fleet, while making it appear that humanity was throwing everything they had into a desperate defense. But the cost was higher than anticipated. All ships begin tactical withdrawal. Make it look good, but get our people out of there. The human fleet began a fighting retreat toward Earth orbit, their ships appearing to flee in disorder, while actually following a carefully planned withdrawal pattern. To the Dominion, it looked like they had broken the back of human resistance with minimal effort. Commander Krell surveyed the battle damage to his fleet and felt a mixture of satisfaction and unease. The humans had fought more effectively than expected, destroying or crippling over 30 Dominion ships before retreating. Most primitive species never managed to damage a single vessel. "Casualties, Commander," his tactical officer reported. 32 ships destroyed, 47 ships with significant damage. The humans used weapons we've never encountered before. How many human ships escaped? Approximately 12 vessels fled toward their home world. Should we pursue and destroy them? Krell considered the question. Standard Dominion protocol was to eliminate all resistance before beginning planetary conquest. But the human ships appeared to be retreating to make a final stand around their planet, which was exactly what primitive species usually did when they realized the hopelessness of their situation. Let them run. They can watch from orbit as we demonstrate what happens to species that resist the Dominion. What Krell didn't realize was that the retreating human ships were actually moving into position for the next phase of Earth's defense plan. The Battle of Jupiter had served its purpose perfectly. The Dominion fleet was damaged and overconfident, believing they had broken humanity's main defense force. As the alien fleet resumed its approach toward Earth, messages from the surviving human ships flooded the communication networks. Captain Blake transmitted what appeared to be a desperate warning to Earth's population. "This is the Defiance. The alien fleet is too powerful. We've lost most of our ships. Prepare for orbital bombardment." The message was received by billions of people in underground shelters around the world. To them, it sounded like humanity's last hope had been crushed. But in the deepest command bunkers, Admiral Stone was already preparing for the next phase of the battle. The real war was about to begin. The Dominion fleet had passed the first test of humanity's defenses. They had proven they could be hurt. They had revealed their tactical preferences. And most importantly, they had been convinced that Earth's resistance was desperate and disorganized. Now it was time to show them what a species looked like when it had been preparing for this battle for over 50 years. Earth hung in space like a blue and white jewel, seemingly defenseless as the Dominion fleet approached. Commander Krell studied the planet through his ship's sensors, already planning how to divide its resources among his officers once the conquest was complete. In his experience, primitive worlds this beautiful usually had populations that adapted well to slavery. "Begin orbital bombardment of military installations," Krell ordered. "Standard pacification pattern. Destroy their ability to resist but leave the infrastructure intact." The Dominion fleet spread out around Earth in a formation designed to prevent any ships from escaping. From their positions in high orbit, they began raining destruction down on the planet's surface. Military bases that had been identified from orbit disappeared in brilliant flashes of light. Cities appeared to burn as massive explosions erupted across every continent. What the Dominion sensors couldn't detect was that most of the explosions were carefully planned demolitions. The military bases they were destroying had been evacuated days earlier, and the cities burning were actually elaborate decoys built on the surface while the real populations lived safely in underground facilities that had been prepared for decades. General Hayes watched the orbital bombardment from his command center 3 miles beneath the Australian desert. His facility was one of 12 hidden command posts that controlled Earth's real defenses. On his screens, he could see the Dominion ships destroying empty buildings and abandoned installations, while the planet's true military capabilities remained completely hidden. Phase 1 is proceeding according to plan, Hayes reported to the Global Defense Council. The enemy is focusing on surface targets. All underground facilities remain undetected. Admiral Stone coordinated the next phase of Earth's defense from a facility that officially didn't exist. While the Dominion fleet was concentrating on their bombardment, human forces were moving into position throughout the solar system. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields began powering up weapon systems. Platforms that had been disguised as space debris started targeting alien vessels. Lunar bases report ready for engagement, his operations officer announced. All systems are powered and locked onto enemy targets. The moon had been humanity's best-kept secret for 30 years. While the public believed the lunar colonies were small research stations, the reality was far different. The dark side of the moon housed manufacturing facilities, weapon platforms, and ship construction yards that could have supplied a small interstellar empire. Dr. Kim worked frantically in her laboratory beneath the Swiss Alps, making final adjustments to the weapon that could change the course of the battle. The device used technology that humanity had barely begun to understand, reverse-engineered from alien artifacts that had been recovered over the past 2 decades. Power levels are approaching maximum, she reported to Colonel Beck. We'll have one shot at this. If it doesn't work, we won't get another chance. The weapon was humanity's ultimate secret, a device that could theoretically disable every ship in the Dominion fleet simultaneously, but it required perfect timing and positioning of the enemy vessels. More importantly, it needed the Dominion to believe they were winning until the exact moment the trap was sprung. Commander Krell was indeed confident that victory was within reach. The human planet appeared to be defenseless, its military installations destroyed and its cities burning. His sensors detected no significant weapon emplacements, no hidden fleets, nothing that could threaten his powerful armada. Commander, his communications officer reported, we're receiving transmission from the planet's surface. It appears to be from their planetary leader. Display it, Krell ordered, expecting to receive humanity's surrender. President Carter appeared on the screen, speaking from what appeared to be a damaged bunker with explosions visible in the background. Her image was being broadcast from a carefully constructed set, while she actually stood safely in a command center 5 miles underground. Commander of the alien fleet, Carter began, I am President Carter of the United Earth Government. Our military forces have been destroyed. Our cities are burning. We cannot resist your superior technology. Krell listened with satisfaction. This was the usual pattern of primitive species accepting the inevitable. However, Carter continued, before we discuss terms of surrender, I want to show you something that might interest you. The transmission switched to display what appeared to be technical readouts of the Dominion ships. Detailed schematics, energy signatures, weapon specifications, and tactical analyses filled the screen. Information that should have been impossible for a primitive species to obtain. We've been studying your empire for 15 years, Carter's voice continued over the technical displays. Ever since we recovered fragments of one of your scout ships that visited our outer solar system, we know how your ships work. We know your battle tactics. We know the location of every major world in your empire. Krell stared at the screen in growing alarm. The technical data was completely accurate, showing details about Dominion technology that even most of his own crew didn't understand. That's impossible, he muttered. How could they have obtained such information? The answer came as Carter's image returned to the screen. Behind her, the background had changed. Instead of a damaged bunker, she now stood in a sophisticated command center with tactical displays showing the position of every ship in the Dominion fleet. Commander Krell, she said, using his name and rank with casual familiarity, You made a critical error when you decided to attack Earth. You assumed we were a primitive species that had never encountered your technology before. You were wrong. Alarms began sounding throughout the Dominion fleet as their sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing throughout the solar system. Ships that had been invisible suddenly became visible as they dropped their stealth systems. Weapon platforms that had been disguised as asteroids revealed themselves as they powered up devastating armaments. All ships, defensive positions, Krell shouted, but it was too late. The lunar installations opened fire first. Particle beams that had been designed specifically to penetrate Dominion armor struck the alien fleet from an unexpected direction. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles found their shields overwhelmed by weapons that seemed to know exactly how to bypass their defenses. Captain Rivera, who had retreated from the earlier battle, led a squadron of human ships as they emerged from concealment behind Earth's polar ice caps. Her ships had been waiting underwater beneath the ice, completely hidden from the Dominion sensors. "Target their command ships," Rivera transmitted to her squadron. "Everything we learned from studying their technology says they can't operate effectively without centralized command." The human attack was unlike anything the Dominion had ever experienced. Instead of the desperate resistance they usually encountered, this was a coordinated assault using weapons and tactics designed specifically to exploit Dominion weaknesses. Every shot was precisely targeted, every maneuver calculated to cause maximum damage. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. As the battle intensified, more human ships appeared throughout the solar system, ships that had been launched decades earlier and had been waiting in the outer system for this exact moment. Ships using technology that was supposed to be impossible for a primitive species to possess. Commander Krell realized with growing horror that his fleet wasn't fighting a desperate last stand by a primitive species. They were fighting a carefully planned ambush by an enemy that had been preparing for this battle longer than most Dominion officers had been alive. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're detecting human ships throughout the system. Their technology appears to be equal to ours in many areas. They're using weapons specifically designed to counter our defenses." The worst part was that Earth itself was still almost completely intact. The orbital bombardment had destroyed nothing of military value. The human population was safely hidden underground, and their real defensive systems were just beginning to reveal themselves. Krell found himself facing a choice he had never encountered in 47 previous conquests. He could continue the battle against an enemy that had been preparing for this moment for decades, or he could retreat and admit that the Dominion had finally encountered a species they couldn't easily conquer. But as he considered his options, President Carter's voice came through the communication systems again. "Commander Krell, you have one opportunity to withdraw your fleet and leave this system. If you choose to continue this attack, you will discover exactly what happens when humanity decides that an alien empire has become a threat to our survival." The threat carried a weight that made Krell's blood run cold. For the first time in his career, he was facing an enemy that might actually be more dangerous than the Dominion itself. The communication came through on every frequency that the Dominion used, broadcast with enough power to reach every ship in their fleet simultaneously. Commander Krell watched in stunned silence as President Carter appeared on screens throughout his flagship, her image crystal clear despite the ongoing battle raging around Earth. "People of the Dominion Empire," Carter began, her voice calm and steady despite the chaos of war. "My name is President Carter of the United Earth Government. This message is being transmitted to every world, every ship, and every station in your empire simultaneously." Krell's communications officer stared at his instruments in disbelief. "Commander, this is impossible. They're broadcasting on our most secure military frequencies. How could they have access to our communication codes?" Carter continued speaking as if she could hear their conversation. "You're wondering how we obtained your communication protocols. The answer is simple. We've been monitoring your empire for over 50 years. We've been inside your network, studying your technology, and preparing for this day since before most of you were born." The background behind Carter shifted, showing massive displays covered with detailed information about Dominion worlds, fleet positions, and military installations, information that should have been classified at the highest levels of the Empire. "Commander Krell, you and your officers are looking at intelligence gathered during decades of careful observation. We know the location of your homeworld. We know your production facilities, your supply lines, your command structures. We know which worlds are critical to your empire's survival and which ones are expendable. Krell felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature on his bridge. The level of detail that humanity apparently possessed about the Dominion was impossible. No primitive species should have been capable of such extensive intelligence gathering. Sir, his tactical officer whispered, long-range communications are reporting similar broadcasts appearing on Dominion networks throughout the galaxy. Every ship, every base, every world is receiving this transmission. Carter's image smiled with a coldness that reminded Krell of his own people's cruelty. You see, Commander, your empire made a fundamental error when you decided to conquer Earth. You assumed that because we appeared primitive, we were defenseless. You failed to consider the possibility that our apparent weakness was carefully designed. The tactical display behind Carter changed, showing the current battle around Earth. But instead of showing humanity's desperate defense, the display revealed the true scope of their preparations: hidden bases throughout the solar system, fleets of ships that had been constructed in secret, weapon systems that surpassed anything the Dominion possessed. 47 years ago, we detected the first evidence of your empire's expansion toward our region of the galaxy. We had time to prepare, while you conquered world after world. Growing overconfident in your technological superiority, we were learning. Every ship you sent to scout our system provided us with new technology to study. Every communication you transmitted gave us more intelligence about your empire. Dr. Kim worked frantically in her laboratory as Carter spoke, making final preparations for humanity's ultimate weapon. The device had been built using technology that combined human engineering with alien artifacts, creating something that neither species could have developed alone. 47 years, Carter repeated. Do you understand what a species can accomplish when they have nearly half a century to prepare for war? When they know exactly who their enemy is and exactly how that enemy fights. The display shifted again, showing images that made Krell's officers gasp in recognition. Dominion worlds, their exact locations, their defensive capabilities, their strategic importance to the Empire. But these weren't intelligence reports. These were targeting displays. While you were preparing to conquer Earth, we were preparing to destroy your empire. Ships launched from our system decades ago are currently in position around every major Dominion world. Not hundreds of ships, Commander, thousands. Krell's blood ran cold as the implications hit him. Full sensor sweep of the home system. Contact the core worlds immediately. His communications officer worked frantically at his station before looking up with terror in his eyes. Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures around the core worlds. Ships are appearing throughout Dominion space. The signatures match the technology we're fighting here. Carter's voice continued with relentless precision. Each of our ships carries weapons capable of sterilizing an entire planet. We've had decades to position them perfectly, to study your defenses, to prepare for simultaneous strikes across your entire empire. The revelation was staggering. While the Dominion had been focused on their conquest of Earth, humanity had been positioning planet-killer weapons around every world in their empire. The primitive species they had come to conquer had been planning the destruction of their entire civilization. This is your final signal. Commander Krell, you have one choice to make, and you have 30 seconds to make it. Order your fleet to withdraw from Earth immediately and return to defend your home worlds, or watch as we demonstrate what happens when a species that has been preparing for war for half a century decides to eliminate a threat. Admiral Stone monitored the transmission from his command center, watching as similar messages were being broadcast to Dominion forces throughout the galaxy. The coordination was perfect. Every human ship, every hidden base, every secret weapon was activating simultaneously. All stations report ready, his operations officer announced. Phase 2 weapons are powered and locked onto targets throughout Dominion space. The 30 seconds passed in complete silence aboard Krell's flagship. Around Earth, the battle had virtually stopped as both sides waited for his decision. Across the galaxy, Dominion commanders were receiving similar ultimatums as human ships revealed themselves around every major world in the Empire. Carter appeared on screen one final time. Your time is up, Commander. You came to Earth believing you were conquering a primitive world. Instead, you've discovered that humanity has been preparing to eliminate your entire empire. The question now is whether you're going to try to destroy one world while we destroy hundreds, or whether you're going to try to save what you can of your civilization. Dr. Kim activated her weapon from the Laboratory beneath the Swiss Alps. The energy, pulse that erupted from Earth was unlike anything that had ever been created before. It swept through the solar system at faster than light speed, carrying with it a signal that every human ship had been waiting decades to receive. Throughout the galaxy, human vessels that had been hiding in the outer systems of Dominion worlds suddenly dropped their concealment. Ships that had been built using the most advanced technology that humanity could develop appeared around planets that had never imagined they could be threatened. The message was simple and devastating. Earth had just demonstrated that they possessed weapons that could reach any point in the galaxy instantaneously. More importantly, they had proven that they had been preparing for this war longer than the Dominion had been an empire. Commander Krell stared at his tactical displays as reports flooded in from across Dominion space. Human ships around the core worlds, human weapons targeting industrial centers, human threats to every world that made the empire possible. The primitive species they had come to conquer had just revealed that they possessed the capability to destroy the entire Dominion empire. The question was whether Krell was willing to sacrifice every world in the galaxy to complete the conquest of one. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving emergency signals from the core worlds. They're requesting immediate fleet assistance. The humans have ships positioned to destroy the capital." Krell realized with growing horror that he was facing an impossible choice: continue the attack on Earth and watch his empire burn, or retreat and admit that the Dominion had finally encountered a species that was more dangerous than they were. Humanity's final signal was clear: you have sealed your fate. The silence that followed Carter's ultimatum stretched across the galaxy like a held breath. On dozens of Dominion worlds, populations looked up at their skies as massive human ships dropped their stealth systems and revealed themselves in orbit. Ships that should not have existed, carrying weapons that primitive species should never have been able to build. Commander Krell stood frozen on his bridge as emergency communications flooded in from across the Empire. His tactical displays showed a nightmare scenario that no Dominion commander had ever faced before. The primitive species they had come to conquer had somehow positioned fleets around every major world in their empire. "Report from the core worlds," his communications officer announced, his voice shaking. "Human ships are in position around our capital. They're demanding immediate withdrawal of all Dominion forces from Earth, or they will begin systematic destruction of our industrial centers." Krell's four hands moved frantically across his control stations as he tried to comprehend the scope of humanity's preparation. For over 300 years, the Dominion had conquered primitive worlds with simple, overwhelming force. No species had ever been capable of threatening their home territory. "How many ships are we talking about?" Krell demanded. "Sir, initial reports suggest over 2,000 human vessels positioned throughout our space. Each ship appears to carry weapons capable of planetary destruction." The numbers were staggering. Humanity had not only built a fleet larger than anything the Dominion possessed, they had positioned it perfectly for simultaneous strikes across the entire empire. The level of planning and coordination required was beyond anything a primitive species should have been capable of achieving. Dr. Kim monitored the global coordination from her facility. Beneath the Swiss Alps, the weapon she had activated was transmitting targeting data to human ships throughout the galaxy, providing real-time intelligence on Dominion fleet movements and defensive positions. "All stations report successful deployment," she announced to the Emergency Command Council. "Phase 3 weapons are online and ready for synchronized strikes." President Carter appeared on communication screens throughout Dominion space, her image being broadcast simultaneously to billions of alien populations who had never imagined their empire could be threatened. "Citizens of the Dominion," Carter began, "your leaders came to Earth believing they could conquer our world and enslave our people. They were wrong. What they discovered instead is that humanity has been preparing for this confrontation for over 50 years. The background behind Carter showed tactical displays revealing the true scope of human preparation. Manufacturing facilities that had been hidden beneath Earth's surface for decades, ship construction yards that had been operating in secret throughout the outer solar system, weapon development programs that had produced technology that surpassed anything the Dominion possessed. Your empire has conquered hundreds of worlds by exploiting technological superiority and tactical surprise. But what happens when you encounter a species that has been studying your methods for longer than most of your soldiers have been alive? Admiral Stone coordinated the final phase of humanity's plan from his command center. Around him, displays showed human forces positioned at strategic points throughout Dominion space. Each fleet had been placed to maximize damage to critical infrastructure while minimizing harm to civilian populations. All units report ready for Operation Clean Sweep, his operations officer announced. We can begin coordinated strikes on command. The operation was the culmination of decades of planning. Human ships would simultaneously target military installations, industrial centers, and command facilities throughout the Dominion Empire. The goal was not to destroy their civilization, but to demonstrate that humanity possessed the capability to eliminate any threat to Earth's survival. On the Dominion capital world, General Vorth watched human ships position themselves around his planet's defensive installations. As the Empire's supreme military commander, he had overseen the conquest of dozens of worlds. He had never imagined that his own planet could be threatened by a species they had considered primitive. "Sir," his aide reported, "the human ships are transmitting detailed intelligence about our defensive capabilities. They know the location of every weapon platform, every shield generator, every military installation on the planet." Vorth stared at the tactical displays in growing disbelief. The humans possessed intelligence that was more accurate than his own military's records. They had somehow infiltrated and mapped the most secure facilities in the Empire. Commander Blake led the human fleet positioned around the Dominion's primary industrial world. His ships had been waiting in the outer system for 3 years, carefully studying the planet's production capabilities and defensive systems. "All ships, target the manufacturing facilities only," Blake transmitted to his squadron. "Our mission is to eliminate their ability to produce new ships, not to harm civilian populations." The precision of the human attack was unlike anything the Dominion had ever experienced. Instead of the overwhelming destruction they used against primitive worlds, humanity employed surgical strikes designed to cripple military capability while preserving civilian infrastructure. Back in Earth's solar system, Commander Krell faced an impossible decision: continue the attack on Earth and watch his empire burn, or retreat and admit that the Dominion had encountered a species more dangerous than themselves. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are demonstrating their weapons capabilities. They've destroyed military installations on 12 worlds simultaneously. No civilian casualties reported, but our defensive capabilities in those systems have been completely eliminated." The demonstration was clear. Humanity possessed the ability to destroy the Dominion Empire whenever they chose. More importantly, they were showing restraint that the Dominion had never shown to conquered species. Carter's voice came through the communication systems one final time. "Commander Krell, you now understand the choice you face. You can continue your attack on Earth and force us to eliminate your entire empire. Or you can withdraw your forces and begin negotiations for a new relationship between our species." The offer was unprecedented. Instead of demanding unconditional surrender, humanity was offering the possibility of coexistence. But the underlying threat was clear. The Dominion Empire existed only because humanity allowed it to exist. "We are not like you," Carter continued. "We do not conquer worlds for expansion or resources, but we will not tolerate threats to our survival. Your empire has become such a threat. The question is whether you're willing to change that." Krell stared at his tactical displays, watching as reports continued to flood in from across the Empire. Human ships around every major world, human weapons targeting critical installations, human technology that somehow exceeded their own despite humanity's apparent primitive status. The most shocking realization was that humanity had been planning this moment for longer than the Dominion had been aware of their existence. While his empire had been expanding and conquering, Earth had been quietly positioning the means to destroy everything they had built. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we have incoming transmission from the core worlds. The Imperial Council is ordering immediate withdrawal from Earth system and return to defend the capital." The order confirmed what Krell already knew. The Dominion Empire, which had seemed invincible just hours earlier, was now fighting for its survival against a species they had underestimated catastrophically. As Krell gave the order for his fleet to withdraw from Earth orbit, he realized that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The age of Dominion expansion was over. Humanity had demonstrated that there were species in the universe capable of fighting back against overwhelming odds. The primitive world they had come to conquer had just become the most dangerous enemy the Dominion had ever faced. And the most terrifying part was that humanity was offering them a chance to survive. Earth hung in space unchanged, its blue surface reflecting sunlight as if nothing had happened. But appearances were deceiving. The planet that looked so peaceful had just revealed itself as the home of a species that could eliminate entire interstellar empires when threatened. Humanity's gambit was complete. They had turned their apparent weakness into the ultimate strategic advantage, transforming a defensive war into a demonstration of power that would reshape the balance of the galaxy forever. The final signal had been sent. The Dominion's fate was now in their own hands,